Quick update on the HCH Lithium BMS testing I've been doing for Jim. We've got the BMS board here wired up to a BCM fooler, the resistor matrix. I've made this with 1K resistors, 12 volt power supply, and down here I've got my adjustable voltage which I'm using to feed the BCM fooler with different voltages. And here we have the CAN bus enabled OBDIIC&C, and as you can see now I've added the code to work out the voltages from the data that we're receiving on the CAN bus. It updates very quickly. You can see there's a counter chugging around in the bottom there, so it's probably updating 10 times a second or something like that. And we can see the voltage for the 10 cell taps there. My multimeter, which I've been using to check it, is not super accurate, but the voltage is very much in line. They're probably within detection voltage, probably at least within 10 millivolts of the actual cell voltage, as far as I can determine it. Sorry, apologies for the confusion with the calculation I posted. I'd forgotten to take into account the voltage drop of the LED here, which negates the need for that adding 100 to the figure which Sam had come up with. So apologies, it drops a volt as the LED, obviously going into the fooler, and I just hadn't considered that, and obviously that made the voltages across the cells that little bit lower than the actual voltage across the fooler. So anyway, that's sorted out, so that seems to be working very well. So the calculation is actually very simple from the raw data we're getting in, the hex data, once it's been sliced up into the appropriate packets. It's just a question of multiplying it by 1.5 rather than 1.54. Again, the error was caused by my LED there, and that comes out to within 10 millivolts, or even closer than that to be fair, of the voltage. Now it's jumping around a bit because my power supply is very noisy that I'm using with the BCM fooler. With cells it would be a lot less noisier than that. Anyway, so there we are, that's where we are. So it's quite possible to use the OBDIIC&C with the CAN bus mod to receive the data from the BMS boards. So it's certainly some progress. Now we need somebody to catch some live data from a working car so we can actually activate the loads on the BMS board in response to differing voltages, and we can hopefully use the OBDIIC&C to send messages backwards and forwards and command balancing as and when we need it. That would be very, very useful. It's certainly easy to use the OBDIIC&C to activate high and low voltage alarm, flash the LED, or sound the buzzer, whatever we want to do. So that's pretty straightforward. Next stage is obviously when John's BMS board gets here. He's sending me a B board. I've got an A board here, and we'll try the two together on the same bus and see if there's any conflicts and whether the OBDIIC&C can interrogate more than one board at the same time. Hopefully they'll have a different ID, and the OBDIIC&C will just be able to get the data from each board in turn, and that will be very useful. I suspect the problem now will be the limited availability of these boards, but anyway, we'll go from there.